In this version of data entry, part number 4, I'm going to introduce you to a new control called a Listbox. You've seen them in all the Windows applications you've used. You can see it right here. But it's a really fun control, and it's going to let us do some really nice things, and I wanted to introduce it to you in this lesson. I'm going to show you first of all how to add items to the Listbox, how to sort them alphabetically, let the Listbox do that. And then in this particular version, what I did was to design this so whatever they pick in the list box, you can see as I'm clicking, it will show up over here in this item text box. So I've just taken the same kind of thing that we had in part 3 with the price and the tax and so forth, and it does exactly the same thing. When you click OK, it's going to calculate the tax and calculate the balance due. But in this particular case, you don't have to type in the item down here unless you want to. Now you can. I left it so you could type in an item. A clerk could type in something that wasn't on the list. But the fun part is just picking something. So as I pick something from my little auto parts store, it pops up in there for you. Okay. Now you notice over here, I've gone out to the internet and borrowed a picture from a website. This is just inside of a picture box like I used on the lawnmower thing, just to, again, to dress it up a little bit. If you want to, you can always make a picture the background of your form. So if you find a really neat texture background, or you find some kind of a photograph that looks really cool, you can always set it as the background of your form in the background image property of Mr. Form. The clear button on this, by the way, does just exactly what the other steps have done, except it puts the cursor back over here, and you'll notice that this time the cursor is blinking over to the right. That means I have set the alignment, text alignment for these text boxes over to the right, so everything kind of adds up. Okay. Now you'll notice when I clicked OK and I didn't put in a price, Visual Basic is going to complain to me. If you'll watch, and I want to show you this. You see this? It's going to come up here and says, "Hey, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to multiply something in the text box by 0.08, and there wasn't anything in the text box." So when you see that, that just means that you messed up when you tried to put some data in a text box, and that happened because I put this in here, but I forgot to put the price. And if I put in $2, then put in a price, and it doesn't complain. Now the reason I'm showing you that is we haven't put any what's called error handling inside of our programs yet. In other words, when people don't do the right thing on our form, our program's not going to work right. It's going to blow up. And by meaning blow up, I mean it's just going to quit, just like mine did. And of course you wouldn't really do that if you were selling it to somebody or making it for a friend. So eventually, in a few more lessons, I'll show you how to handle those kind of errors so that it comes up with a little message box and tells them nicely. Okay? Let's take a look at a couple of things. First of all, I want to show you the simplest way to add items to a list box. The list box control, by the way, is right here under Common Controls on your toolbox, and you're just going to grab a list box, drag it over to the form, and put it wherever you want. It also has a little smart tag, okay? And you can edit the items that are in there. You can add some things, but I want to just show you the way I normally do it, and that is to get it on here and resize it however you want. And by the way, you don't worry about having this thing long enough to manage all of your items. If it's not long enough, watch. As I make it smaller, it will automatically put that scroll bar in there for you. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Let me make this just a skosh wider. There we go. Now what I want to do is I want to click F4, push F4 rather, and go up here and look at its properties. And here I'm going to show you how to add items to the list box. We're going to add them at what's called design time. Later, in another project, I'll show you how to do it in code. But right now I want to show you the easiest way. Go to the properties of your list box, and I called this one LST Products. See that right there? Come down here to the items property. Now this here is a collection of all the items in the list box. And what you do, if you want to add something, you come over to this little ellipse button and click it. And it comes up with this little box where you can just simply add things. So if I want to add things after the water pump, I wanted to put in here, I want to put in an air pressure gauge, something like that. I could just say OK, and you'll notice I'm not worried about the alphabetizing of it. I'll show you why in a sec. And as soon as I close that, it adds it all in there, and you can see that it's all alphabetized. The reason I wasn't worried about alphabetizing it is because the Listbox has a property called sorted. And if you set it to true, it'll sort them for you. If you set it to false, it won't. So don't ever worry about trying to put them in a nice, neat order. Just put them in however you want and set this like this, and it sorts them. And you'll notice it sorts them right away. You don't even have to run your program. Okay? Now the new thing that I want to show you, because everything else is the same, is when they click on an item in the list box, I want to take what they selected and put over in this text box that I call TXT item. All right? So we want to take whatever they selected, and I'm only letting them select one thing. You can let people select more than one thing, but not in this case. I'm not going to let them. I'm going to take what they selected in my LST products list box right here and put what they clicked on and put it over in this box. Okay? And then the rest is the same. So let's see how I did that. I'm going to go to my code, and I'm going to close this so you can see better. And I'm going to go to my button down here, on my click event rather, for Mr. Listbox. Now you'll notice, if you looked at part 3 of this, that all of this stuff here is exactly the same. In fact, I just copied all the code and put it in here. All of this stuff for clearing all the items, they're all the same. Okay? Here's where I make this happen, and it only takes one line of code. I want to show you something. When you select items out of a list box, Microsoft figured what you want to do is to pick the item that they highlighted. Well, that makes perfect sense. But in this particular case, when you double click it, Visual Studio doesn't make a click event for the list box. You see this? What it does, it creates what's called a selected index changed event. Now, I know it would sound better and be simpler if they called it a click event, but they don't. What happens is, in every one of these items in the list box, they're all identified by an index number starting at 0. So air pressure gauge would be item 0. Air shocks is 1, coolant is 2, off-road lights is 3, and so forth. You just have to remember everything in VB05 now starts counting at 0. And so internally, as far as the computer is concerned, it could care less what my items say. It doesn't pay any attention to that. What it uses internally, and you can't see it, are little index numbers starting at 0. So that's why they call this a selected index change. That means somebody clicked on it and it changed the index number. Maybe they had 3 before, and now they clicked on the first item and now it's 0. Okay? So to take what's ever in the LST products list box, you just say dot selected item. Okay? And then you put it inside the text box txtitem.text. Now remember, these are the object names that I use. If you're designing this and you're giving it different names, then you got to make sure you change these. But these are just what I called them. So once again, selected item is a property of the list box, and when your program's running, it takes whichever one was highlighted and just pops it over here into this text box. Okay? Just remember, in VB and all the other languages, this is the destination and this is where it's coming from. And you'll have a tendency when you're first doing this to reverse them. Okay? So otherwise everything is the same, and now I think, if I look here real quickly, I think that's all that I was going to show you in this one. But it's a fun little thing. And there's one other thing I see here now. I wanted to show you how to set what's called the tab order. Watch. When I run this and I push the tab key, watch what happens. It goes into the first name box, last name, item, then it goes over here, and I can actually I'm using my arrow keys on the keyboard now. It goes there, and then it goes over to the price box, see? And then it jumps to the OK button, and then the clear button, and then the end. Okay? When you're all done with your program, and I mean all done, don't do this until you're all finished, you can set the tab order for your project, and here's how you do it. Come up here and say View, Tab Order. And one thing I want you to know is, see all these labels? Labels never get the focus. In other words, you never tab into a label. And why they show these silly things, I don't know. I wish they didn't. So just ignore the labels. And what you do is you click on your first one that you want to have show up in the tab order. Okay? And what you want to do is you want to make this a 0. Oops, sorry. And then the next one, you want to make a 1, and then a 2, and then so forth. Now what I want to do is I want to get this back. It's acting persnickety. Let me close it for a second. I want to make this a 0, okay, and then a 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4 to put in the price, and then 5, 6, 7. That's good. Okay, see how that works? So as I hit the tab key, it's going to go here, and then it's going to go here, and then it's going to jump over here so they can pick something, and then it's going to go in here in case they want to change it. Then it'll jump down to here, and then it'll go through the buttons. So then we can close this, and let's save it, and let's run it and see if I messed it up. When it first starts off, the tab is there. I hit tab, it comes to last name, comes over here, then it goes here, then here, then OK, clear, end, and then it just cycles around. See how that works? Very cool. And that's how you do it, but trust me, don't mess with this until after you get all your controls set the way you want, because if you start moving these around, then it messes up your tab order. So it's really the last thing that you want to do. Okay? All right, good. So that's the end of lesson 1. I hope you picked up some things, and I'm hoping that you're getting a feel for this. Putting objects on the form, moving them around, adjusting their properties, and then in code, using some methods, using some other techniques to kind of move data around, trying to manipulate data, close our form, clear the controls, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now when we go to lesson 2, we're going to jump in and start doing some more fun things. All right, see you later then.